The quiet rhythm of the grandfather clock in the living room was the only sound, a soft, deliberate beat that underscored the profound stillness. Outside, the final rays of the sun, a fleeting blush, painted the kitchen walls in hues of molten gold before surrendering to the encroaching twilight. I stood by the dining table, the seared salmon still shimmering under the ambient glow, a picture of domestic perfection. It was an unsettling perfection, the kind I'd once naively associated with an idyllic love. The mingled scents of fresh herbs and citrus, usually a source of comfort, now stirred an unfamiliar pang, a yearning for something I couldn't quite grasp. The time was precisely 6:30. Dinner was prepared and Nathan was, as usual, delayed. He invariably promised to be home by 7, a promise I'd once believed with an almost touching naivete. My first misstep wasn't failing to disbelieve him, but persisting in my belief. A vibration on the kitchen counter announced an incoming message. "Hey babe, don't wait up. The family's heading to Palm Springs for the weekend. I'll call you later." No affectionate sign-off, no explanation, no wish for my company. The word family landed like a precise incision, not deep enough to wound, but sufficient to remind me of my severed ties. The official document still declared me his wife, yet the world had quietly erased my presence. My gaze drifted back to the meticulously set table. 4 plates, 2 wine glasses, candles standing sentinel in their holders. I had arranged a feast for 2, a performance of a shared existence that had long since dissolved. The truth, however, had been a slow chill on that table for months, a subtle decay masquerading as routine. The silence grew heavy, a tangible presence pressing against my chest. I took my seat opposite the empty chair, where the spectral image of him flickered, his laughter, his animated discussions about his cases, his clients, his triumphs that no longer required my validation. I often pondered if love didn't truly perish, but simply evaporated, like a forgotten spill left to dry, fading until nothing remained. The phone screen lit up again, this time a photograph shared in the family group chat. Nathan, beaming, bathed in sunlight, his parents and sister flanking him, her children at their feet, the backdrop a blur of palm trees and a shimmering pool under an impossibly vibrant sky. A perfect tableau with no space for me. I scrolled, each subsequent image a frozen moment of shared joy, devoid of any tag or mention of my name. I was his wife in name only, a silent partner in a life I no longer inhabited. I extinguished the phone and met my own reflection in the darkened window. The woman staring back possessed my features, my hair, my eyes, but her gaze was vacant, as if she'd been waiting at a deserted station for a train that would never arrive. I struggled to recall the last time Nathan had truly seen me, not out of obligation nor pity, but simply perceived me. The memory eluded me. Instead, I recalled his dismissive tone that morning. "Eleanor, don't forget to water the plants. And oh, buy something nice for my mum's birthday. She likes those pearls from the boutique." No expressions of affection, no "I love you," only a directive. Love, it seemed, had been reduced to a task list, and I was merely an item to be checked off. The candles burned low, their wax pooling like tears. The meal grew cold. I lifted a piece of salmon, hoping for some sensory anchor, but it tasted like dust. I placed my fork down with deliberate slowness. The gentle clink against porcelain resonated, a sharp, definitive punctuation. This home had once echoed with warmth, with laughter, with shared dreams, with soft melodies. Now it was a mausoleum of silence where even the walls seemed to murmur, "He no longer cherishes you." I rose to clear the table. Each dish felt unnaturally heavy, as if burdened by the weight of unfulfilled promises. The soft clinking of glasses conjured a chilling thought. This must be what slow dissolution feels like. At the sink, I washed each plate under the running water, watching the soap bubbles dissipate, the smallest ones vanishing without a trace. A quiet demise akin to hope dissolving into the ether. In the faucet's polished surface, I glimpsed the faint outline of my wedding ring. For a fleeting moment, I considered its removal. Would it bring a sense of lightness or an even greater void? I didn't remove it, not yet. Cowardice manifests in myriad forms, and mine was adorned with gold. The night deepened, the street outside hushed, save for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional canine bark. I settled on the sofa with a glass of wine, idly flipping through old photographs. There we were, beaming on the beach at his graduation, at our wedding. His arm was always around me, yet now I perceived the subtle distance between us, a gap I had willfully overlooked, attributing it to an optical illusion. I had once subscribed to the belief that marriage was an exercise in compromise, patience, and waiting. Now, I wondered if waiting was merely a genteel term for a slow internal demise. The clock chimed 9. No call, I anticipated none. I switched off my phone, placed it face down, and leaned back. The wine offered a superficial warmth, but my heart remained frigid. Memories, unbidden, surged forward. Our first meeting, when he fumbled his case files and I helped him gather them. His initial smile, which I'd interpreted as a sign of kindness, now felt more like calculated charm. Charm, I realized, could be deceptive, appearing as warmth but ultimately burning like an intense fire. I sat in a state of suspended animation, the city's pulse a distant thrum. Eventually, I returned to the dining table. The candle had dwindled to a mere puddle of wax. I touched it tentatively. It was still warm, barely. Still warm, I whispered to myself, a poignant echo of fading affection. A quiet, bitter laugh escaped me. Such a cruel illusion hope could be. As I carried the plates to the sink, one slipped from my grasp, shattering on the floor with a sharp report that pierced the pervasive silence like a cry. I froze. Fragments of porcelain, scattered like broken promises, reflected slivers of my face. There it was, the stark metaphor I had been so desperately avoiding. Something once beautiful and whole, now irrevocably fractured. No amount of careful repair could restore it to its original form. The sound lingered, a phantom echo in my ears. Kneeling, I began to gather the pieces. A small cut bloomed on my finger, a crimson contrast against the white shards. It didn't ache, it felt almost truthful. The first genuine sensation in weeks. Blood on porcelain, love on paper, both fragile, both easily obliterated. I rinsed my hand, wrapped it in a towel, and leaned against the counter. The house felt altered, the silence no longer suffocating, but somehow more honest. I moved to the window. The night sky loomed, stars obscured by a shroud of clouds. Miles away, Nathan was likely laughing, toasting, basking in the illusion of his perfect life. Perhaps it was perfect. Perhaps I was the sole inhabitant of a spectral existence. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, whispering to my reflection, "You did everything right. You loved, you waited, you believed." My reflection offered no reply, but a glimmer in its eyes suggested something beyond tears, a quiet, potent clarity. There arrives a moment in every woman's life when the question shifts from why me to what now. That moment was approaching, a gathering storm on the horizon, but not tonight. Tonight I was still that same gentle woman, polite, patient, devoted to a man who had long ceased to deserve it. Karma, I knew, did not hurry. It observed, it awaited. I extinguished the kitchen light, surrendering the room to the encroaching darkness. The air held a crisp coolness, the kind that permeated to the bone, From the living room, the clock continued its steady, unyielding march. Each tick felt like a pulse, each beat a countdown. A subtle shift had occurred within me, a quiet opening, like a door creaking ajar deep within my soul. I didn't know its destination, but I knew I would step through it. Before retiring, I paused before the mirror again, studying the faint smear of red on my finger. The blood had dried, the cut barely visible. A faint smile touched my lips. Perhaps pain in its initial onset is loud, only to recede into silence as it heals. Lying down, the bed felt vast. Nathan's side lay undisturbed, a smooth expanse as if he had never occupied it. I turned toward it, placed my hand on the cool, empty pillow and whispered, "I hope she makes you happy." Not an act of forgiveness, nor a barb of bitterness, but a simple, clean statement. Final, because deep down I knew the cosmic scales would eventually balance, and I would not need to intervene. As sleep began to claim me, the echo of the breaking plate resounded, a recurring motif in the quiet recesses of my mind. But this time it spoke not of loss, but of liberation, a sound that heralded an ending, and softly, the nascent whisper of a new beginning. If this narrative resonated with you, a single click in the comments would convey that these stories still hold meaning for you. In my place, what would you have done? Your perspectives are always welcome and deeply appreciated. I am genuinely curious about your thoughts and where you first encountered this tale, or what compelled you to see it through to its conclusion. Should stories like this touch your heart, please express your appreciation with a like and subscribe to remain connected. Numerous narratives await, perhaps offering a reflection of your own experiences. Morning arrived like an uninvited guest, having forgotten my name. A soft, pale gold light filtered through the curtains, washing the room in a gentle luminescence that offered no warmth. The pillow beside me remained untouched. Nathan had not returned. I gazed at the ceiling for an extended period, tuning into the subtle hum of the refrigerator and the muted symphony of distant traffic. It was peculiar how silence could become so deafening once love had vacated the premises. The world outside continued its ceaseless motion, oblivious to any disruption. Yet within me a subtle, quiet, irreversible alteration had taken root. I prepared coffee precisely as he preferred it. 2 spoonfuls of sugar, a touch of cream, an ingrained habit devoid of hope, for even after love's demise, habits persist like spectral presences. The aroma permeated the kitchen, and for a fleeting instant a semblance of normalcy returned. Almost, then the phone buzzed anew, a message from Clara. "You okay? He posted pictures from Palm Springs. Want me to come over?" I stared at the screen. Palm Springs again. That destination had become a symbol of exclusion, of profound betrayal, of all the places I was destined to be absent from. "No," I typed back. "I'm fine." A lie so well rehearsed it flowed from my fingertips with deceptive ease. Clara, my oldest confidant, knew me better than anyone. We had met during our university years in an era when I still held a steadfast belief in the transformative power of diligence and compassion. She, with her piercing intellect and equally sharp wit, had always possessed an uncanny ability to discern falsehood before it was even uttered. She had never warmed to Nathan, deeming him too smooth after their initial encounter. Men of his ilk, she'd observed, collect affections like lawyers amass cases, not for preservation but for conquest. I should have heeded her counsel, but I was ensnared by love, a force that can render even the most deserving women susceptible to folly. By midday, my salon was cloaked in a quietude. It was a modest establishment, nestled between a bakery and a bookstore, my personal sanctuary. The air was perfumed with the delicate scents of shampoo and rose oil. clients, a procession of individuals, discussed impending weddings, career advancements, and idyllic vacations, lives that seemed a universe away from my own. I offered smiles, nods, and attentive listening, yet my thoughts constantly veered back to Nathan's recent message. The emphasis on the family, the words replayed incessantly, a discordant note in an otherwise familiar melody. Around 3 o'clock, Clara appeared unannounced. Her gaze swept over my face, scrutinizing me like a physician seeking symptoms. "You haven't slept," she stated, the observation delivered as a definitive pronouncement, not a query. I handed her a mug of coffee, attempting to maintain an outward appearance of composure. But Clara was not a woman easily deceived by a pretense of well-being. She settled back, her arms crossed. "Eleanor, you've been fading for months. What is truly happening?" I hesitated, the truth a heavy weight lodged in my throat. "He's changed," I finally admitted, "colder, secretive, and I suspect there's someone else." Clara's jaw tightened, but she remained silent, allowing me to continue. I recounted the clandestine texts, the abrupt trips, the late evenings, the chilling transformation in his voice from warmth to exasperation. When I finished, a profound silence enveloped her. Then she spoke, her voice both soft and resolute. "Check the house deeds and your bank statements. If he's truly the man you describe, he won't merely inflict emotional pain, he'll aim to seize your assets." Her words lingered in the air, acrid and inescapable like smoke. That evening, after closing the salon, I drove home, her stark warning echoing in my mind. "Check the house deeds. The house, my sole inheritance, bequeathed by my father prior to his passing. The only property registered solely in my name." I stepped across the threshold and surveyed my surroundings. A faint trace of his cologne still clung to the air, despite his absence for days. Each framed photograph seemed to capture a staged smile, a performance for a camera that had once believed in forever. I opened the study door. Nathan's desk was impeccably ordered, a testament to his methodical nature, a calculated facade to mask underlying chaos. The safe was concealed behind a row of legal texts. I knew the combination. He had shared it with me long ago, in an era when trust still held meaning. The keypad chirped its acknowledgement. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Inside, I discovered documents, financial statements, property deeds, his business contracts. And then I saw it. My name juxtaposed with his on a deed that felt palpably incorrect. Initially, I dismissed it as a visual distortion, but upon closer inspection, the signature at the bottom, purportedly mine, was a meticulous imitation, yet undeniably not my own. A knot tightened in my stomach. He had forged my signature. He had effectively converted our shared home into his personal collateral. For a considerable period, I remained paralyzed. The reality of his deceit washed over me not as a sudden impact, but as a slow, insidious tide, stealing my breath with each receding wave. I sank into his chair and stared at the documents. The stark black ink spelling out a legal testament to betrayal. How effortlessly love could morph into larceny. How readily trust could be weaponized. My fingers trembled as I reached for my phone. Clara answered on the first ring. "I found it," I whispered. "He forged my name." Silence, then her voice, calm yet razor-sharp. "Listen carefully. Do not confront him. Copy everything, every document, every file. Send them to me tonight." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Something within me shifted again, a second fracture following the shattering of the plate the previous night. The silent dismantling of another cherished illusion. I worked diligently, scanning documents, capturing photographs, meticulously labeling each folder. Each click of the camera shutter felt like a reclamation of a piece of myself. tangible proof of what I had endured, irrefutable evidence of what I was no longer willing to tolerate. At some point, I glanced up, catching my reflection in the glass cabinet. The same woman, yet a profoundly altered spirit. Her eyes held a newfound clarity, a steely resolve. When my task was complete, I sat in the darkened study, enveloped by the remnants of love's decay and greed's elaborate disguise. Nathan's words from months past echoed in my mind. Marriage is about partnership, Elena. We're a team. A team, that's what we had once called ourselves, but somewhere along the line he had begun to keep score, and I, it seemed, was the only one unaware that the game had already concluded. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and allowed the silence to reclaim its space. This time it was not an oppressive weight, but a low, steady hum, akin to the quiet prelude to a storm. A silence that did not plead for peace, but prepared for battle. That night the house was cast in dim, hushed tones. My reflection in the mirror seemed almost unfamiliar. The woman gazing back was no longer broken, but profoundly awake, not incandescent with rage, nor trembling with fear, but simply seeing. I traced the faint scar on my finger, a thin line etched from the night I had dropped a plate, an attempt to cleanse too quickly, too often. It had healed with a silent inevitability. How curious that pain in its initial stages announces itself loudly, only to recede, leaving behind a quiet scar. I thought of every yes I had uttered while swallowing a no, every instance I had silenced my own voice to preempt the tremor in his. Every time I had mistaken endurance for grace. They term it devotion, yet I have learned that devotion, when misdirected, becomes mere obedience cloaked in poetic language, chains we forge for ourselves and label as love. By dawn the truth had settled, heavy and definitive, yet strangely clean. I had not slept. The divorce papers lay downstairs, beside an untouched dinner and an unlit candle. The evidence had always been present, ink on paper, lies in plain sight. The initial betrayal, I now understood, was not theirs but ours. When we elect to embrace the comforting lie over the daunting truth, the morning unfolded with the solemnity of ritual, coffee, mug, steam rising in ethereal tendrils. But this time it was not prepared for him. Each clink, each hiss felt like a definitive punctuation mark to an ending. The house itself a silent, approving witness. The first sip burned a bitter revelation on my tongue, not the coffee but the knowledge it conveyed. And knowledge, once consumed, irrevocably alters everything. Nothing sweet ever tastes quite the same again. By 10 o'clock, I was at Clara's office. Her desk resembled a battlefield of documents and paperwork, yet she cleared a space the moment she met my gaze. "You brought everything?" she inquired. I nodded, handing her the folder. Years of unthinking trust compressed between sheets of legal jargon. Clara leafed through the documents, her eyes narrowing with each page. When she finally looked up, her voice was low and steady. "Eleanor, he didn't just forge your signature. He's been systematically moving money for months." The air left my lungs in a rush. "To where?" She turned her monitor towards me. A name glowed on the screen, stark and indelible like a scar that refused to fade. Vivian Reed, Vivian. The name struck a chord of familiarity, a vague recollection from a casual mention over dinner. "An associate," he'd claimed, "merely a colleague." A laugh that lingered too long on his lips. A faint perfume that clung to his collar when he swore he'd been working late. So it was her, the phantom presence behind the absent weekends, the smile that masked the deception, the woman who had claimed what I had once believed was irrevocably mine, only to realize it had never truly belonged to me. Clara continued detailing legal strategies, tracing financial transactions and discussing subpoenas. but her voice faded into a generalized hum. All I could perceive was that name, repeating in my mind like an insistent mantra, a curse. Vivian Reed, the woman who had entered my life uninvited. As I departed her office, the city seemed to possess a sharper edge. Pedestrians bustled past, their movements purposeful. The sky blazed with an almost painful intensity, and I marveled at how easily everyone else navigated their existence when the very ground beneath me felt so fundamentally unstable. I walked aimlessly until I found myself standing before the boutique where Nathan's mother favored her shopping excursions. In the display window, a necklace gleamed, its pearls arranged in exquisite symmetry. Pearls. He had once told me pearls reminded him of me. Simple, classic, demure. Now I regarded them with a different perspective, envisioning suffocation, layers of manufactured charm designed to conceal pain, until it shimmered with an artificial brilliance. I did not enter. I had no further need for illusions. That evening, back in the familiar confines of my home, the air once again felt heavy. Every object seemed to hold a memory I had not requested. The sofa where we had shared cinematic evenings, the hallway where he had pressed a kiss to my forehead, the mirror that had so often reflected a tapestry of lies. I poured myself a glass of wine, settled at his desk, and opened his laptop. The password, predictably, was our anniversary date. How profoundly ironic. The date marking our beginning had become the key to our unraveling. My hands trembled slightly as I navigated through his files. Client portfolios, invoices, and then a concealed directory. Labeled simply personal. Within, I discovered a trove of images. Palm Springs, Nathan, and Vivian, her hand resting casually on his shoulder, his smile utterly unguarded. A private world, vibrant and cruel, captured by an unthinking lens. Each photograph felt like a fresh wound, yet by the fifth image, the initial sting of pain dulled, yielding to a stark clarity. Pain has its limits. Once those boundaries are breached, the bleeding ceases and observation takes its place. I copied all the contents onto a flash drive. My reflection in the darkened screen met my gaze. Calm, impassive, almost a stranger. This was not the face of a woman subjected to betrayal. This was the visage of someone methodically compiling evidence. Later that night, Clara called. "Did you find anything?" she asked. "Yes," I replied, detailing the photographs, the forged deed, and the financial transfers. She exhaled softly. "Then we proceed strategically. We construct a compelling case before he even suspects anything is amiss. Send only text, without any explanatory notes or commentary." "Clara," I whispered, my voice barely disturbing the quiet. "Have you ever considered how someone can share your bed and still orchestrate your downfall?" Her pause at the other end of the line clicked rhythmically. It's because they equate gentleness with obliviousness, but they overlook one crucial detail. Light may appear soft, but it possesses the power to sear. After our conversation concluded, I remained immersed in darkness for an extended period. My thoughts drifted back to every subtle indication I had dismissed. Those furtive smiles, the late-night exchanges, the faint aroma of another woman's perfume lingering on his attire. I had convinced myself that love inherently demanded forbearance. However, when that forbearance is misdirected, it morphs into an implicit invitation. That profound realization settled within me, as immutable as an inscription carved into stone. Precisely at midnight, I discerned the sound of a vehicle entering the driveway. Beams from the headlights swept across the walls. Nathan had returned home. My pulse did not accelerate. Rather, it decelerated, becoming measured and deliberate. The front door creaked open. Footsteps traversed the hallway. He halted upon seeing me seated there, a picture of serenity bathed in the lamplight. "Eleanor," he articulated, his surprise evident. "You're still awake." "I found myself unable to sleep," I responded. My own voice sounded alien, a calm, controlled instrument. He offered a smile, one that felt weary and prearranged. "The business trip ran late. You understand how it is." "Palm Springs again?" I inquired. His gaze shifted, a momentary flicker, yet it was enough. "I told you it was strictly business." "Business involving Vivian Reed." A heavy silence descended like falling embers. His jaw clenched. "Where did you learn that?" "Your files," I stated. "Your photographs." "The fraudulent signature on the property deed." For a fleeting instant neither of us moved. Then he let out a short, sharp, defensive laugh. "You went through my belongings. You invaded my life." The words emerged softly, almost tenderly, but they struck with a force far exceeding a shout. He attempted denial, then anger, and finally charm, all the personas he adopted so effortlessly. Yet none of them resonated anymore, because I was no longer the woman who cowered at his outbursts or melted at his apologies. I observed him constructing a cascade of justifications, each more flimsy than the last. When he grasped that my composure remained unshaken, he fell silent. "What is it you want, Elena?" he eventually asked, his voice low. "Nothing," I replied, "only the truth." His eyes averted first, and in that subtle gesture I comprehended everything: his guilt, his apprehension, his arrogance, and the dawning awareness that I was no longer his captivated audience. As he ascended the stairs, I remained in my place, enveloped by the fractured remnants of what had once been a marriage. The house felt strangely purified, stripped bare of deception. The revelation had arrived not with vocal outbursts, but with crystalline clarity, and clarity possesses a resonance far exceeding rage. Several hours later, as the first hints of dawn began to paint the sky, I ventured outside. The air was cool, carrying a faint scent of impending rain. For the first time in months, I felt liberated from a burden, not precisely happy nor sorrowful, but simply unbound. I realized then that infidelity, when perceived with unclouded vision, does not merely shatter you, it liberates you from the exhausting pretense. The universe does not eternally conceal its truths. It allows deception to flourish only until the moment you can discern its true form. And when its superficial charm inevitably fades, what remains is not agony, but the nascent seed of enlightenment. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply. Somewhere behind me Nathan slept, inhabiting the same dwelling but a world apart. Before me lay a new dawn, one that finally belonged entirely to me. The morning dawned without fanfare, no dramatic thunderclap, no dazzling display of light, merely the gradual revelation of a grey sky stretching over slumbering streets. Nathan had already departed. The lingering scent of his cologne still permeated the hallway, a spectral echo of his arrogance. I stood by the window, a cup of coffee warming my hands, and experienced a profound absence of emotion. Not anger, not sorrow, just the profound stillness that accompanies the complete extinguishment of all illusion. I dedicated that day to navigating the house like an archivist, meticulously gathering evidence from a long-forgotten exhibit. Receipts, correspondence, agreements, each item a fossilized testament to betrayal. I scanned, saved, and meticulously labeled each piece. Every click of the computer mouse marked a resolute beat of my heart. Clara contacted me at midday. "The case is robust," she affirmed. "He won't anticipate it." "I have no desire for retribution," I countered. "My sole aim is resolution." She paused. "Resolution in itself is the most exquisite form of justice." When Nathan returned that evening, the house exuded an immaculate order. Candles cast a soft glow. Dinner was served, a deliberate echo of the dutiful wife I had once been. He smiled, a gesture of palpable relief. He mistook my serenity for capitulation, a common misjudgment among men. We dined in near silence. He spoke of his professional endeavours, of intricate dealings, and of an upcoming weekend conference. I offered brief nods, committing to memory every syllable that would later serve as irrefutable evidence. As he raised his wine goblet, I glimpsed my own reflection in its dark, polished surface. A woman observing her own dissolution and simultaneous rebirth in a single poignant moment. That night, while he slept, I meticulously packed, not clothing nor sentimental trinkets, but solely the crucial documents, a data storage device, and the quiet dignity he had erroneously believed he had wrested from me. I placed the ring upon his pillow, akin to leaving a token of payment for a debt finally discharged. Adjacent to it, a missive penned in steady, unwavering ink. You forged my name on paper. I reclaimed it through truth. Then I departed, securing the door from the outside. The key's metallic clink in my palm felt definitive. The city was stirring from its slumber, streetlights conceding their dominance to the approaching dawn. I drove towards Clara's office, the sky behind me igniting with the nascent hues of sunrise. The radio played a gentle melody, the kind that fills voids too profound for spoken words. Each mile that distanced me from that house felt like the severing of another chain. Some conflicts conclude not with a triumphant victory, but with a profound silence, a silence so absolute that it transmorphs into an inexhaustible power. This occurs when a woman ceases to plead for comprehension and instead acts upon her inner knowing. The world then realigns itself around her inherent strength. By the time the sun crested the horizon, the legal documents were safely within Clara's possession, and the judicial proceedings had already been initiated. I stepped out from the courthouse and drew a deep, cleansing breath. For the first time in years, the air carried the unadulterated, undeniable taste of liberty. Behind me, the past was quietly unraveling. Ahead, the vast universe awaited, patient and just. The courtroom itself was a stark, unadorned space, embodying unyielding honesty. Truth possesses no artificial fragrance, it simply exists, undeniable. Nathan sat opposite me, his attorney murmuring counsel in his ear. He appeared diminished now, stripped of his usual charm, his confident control, and the influence he once wielded with such apparent ease. The judge's voice resonated throughout the chamber, proclaiming the verdict. Forgery, fraud, attempted misappropriation of marital assets. Guilty. Each word landed with the resonant clang of manacles striking the floor. Not upon me, but upon him. Vivian could not meet my gaze. Her once impeccable composure had wilted under the harsh fluorescent glow of the courtroom. The world had already transformed her supposed glamour into a sensational headline. The woman who aided a married man in defrauding his wife. What had previously shimmered as sophistication now dripped with the stain of public scandal. Affection had curdled into damning evidence. Behind Nathan, his family sat rigidly silent. Their countenances were ashen. No words remained to defend him, no pretext to conceal themselves behind. That fragile veneer of respectability shattered then and there, crushed beneath the weight of their collective refusal to acknowledge reality. As the gavel fell, I offered no triumphant smile. I simply rose. There was no surge of victory, no applause. Only that profound, unwavering peace that intrinsic truth alone can bestow. A weighty, purifying, definitive conclusion. Days later, I sold the house. Not out of animosity, but as an act of self-preservation and compassion. I packed a single suitcase, secured my passport, and embraced a heart finally liberated from the burden of negotiation. At the airport, dawn spilled across the glass enclosure in hues of golden rose. the kind of light that imbues all things with a sense of absolution. I watched it cascade onto the tarmac and whispered as if to no one in particular, "No marriage dissolves solely because one person undergoes a transformation. It ends because someone grew excessively complacent in their perpetual state of being forgiven." As the aircraft ascended, piercing the cloud layer, the world below blurred into a soft, indistinct tapestry. Oceans, cities, memories seemed to dissolve into the atmosphere. Singapore materialized beneath me, a city renowned for its cleanliness and vibrancy, a metropolis that appeared untouched by the complexities of my past. No spectres, no lingering echoes, just an expansive openness awaiting my arrival. For the first time in countless years, I had no predetermined schedule, no commitments to uphold, no roles to enact. Only the profound, quiet luxury of a fresh start, not as someone's wife or someone's regrettable error, but simply as myself. My thoughts encompassed the entirety of it all: the fabrications, the solemnity of the courtroom, the oppressive silence, the nights that had hollowed me out. And I came to understand that none of it had been in vain. Adversity was not a penalty, it was a purification. Karma had not arrived to dismantle me, it had come to re-establish equilibrium. For every seed of deceit Nathan had sown, truth had unfurled in its own season. For every tear I had held back, grace had returned, quiet and abundant. The universe meticulously keeps its accounts, not through malice, but through perfect symmetry. And as the aircraft descended into the embracing sunlight, I knew this with absolute certainty. Betrayal does not shatter a woman, it awakens her. It imparts the knowledge that love devoid of sincerity is merely an elaborate illusion. That profound peace represents the most potent form of retribution, and that karma never forgets. While the deceitful may achieve temporary triumphs, integrity invariably secures the ultimate victory.